movieweb.com.
Look at this. Some hippie thing's gonna get canceled unless they find a new place for the concert.
Wow, Janis Joplin.
Grateful Dead, The Who.
Well, the locals killed it.
Bummer, man.
Can you connect me with something called Woodstock Ventures?
Hey, man. You have a permit, right?
Yeah.
Very cool.
You say you want to use these fields here?
That's why we're here.
You'll have to tidy up after yourself.
Of course. We're gonna need a place for people to crash. Why don't we just buy the Almanaco out for the season? We like to pay cash in advance.
Your mother says we can triple our money.
3 times the rooms.
The word is getting out that maybe we'll have a few more guests than we originally thought.
I guess here you're known for your comedy. Right?
Yeah.
But in this film, you're kind of the straight man, kind of like taking in what's happening around you. Talk about being cast in this movie.
Yeah, it was a real surprise because most of my experience in showbiz is stand-up. I love doing stand-up, and I still do. I write jokes and I tell them and stuff. So they contacted my agent and said they were interested in me coming in for something. And I came in and they told me. Then all of a sudden I was auditioning for them, and then they said I got the part. So I was like, wow, this is crazy. And reading the script, I realized, yeah, this is probably gonna be some real acting here, where I have to listen to people in scenes, and some of it's kind of serious. So I thought, yeah, this is a great challenge. And I was grateful from day one to have the opportunity, and surprised. I was just like, that's a risk for them, you know? For me, I'm trying something, but for them, they're putting money into a movie and making a movie.
This is your first film, feature film, and you're working with Ang Lee. Talk about being cast and just how you felt getting into this role.
Okay, so I found out that I got the movie. I did a show on Broadway called Spring Awakening. Put myself on tape for this Ang Lee movie, on tape. He wasn't there, on tape with the amazing casting director, A.V. Kaufman. Went home to Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Sang in an old people's home in Harrisburg. And on the way out of the old people's home, I was in the van, my mom's van, with my mom. And she was like, wow, from Broadway to the old people's home in Harrisburg, you've really made it big. And we were laughing. And then I got the call from my agent that said, you know, you're going to be in your first movie and Ang Lee's going to direct you in it. And I flipped out. I couldn't believe it. I'd never met him. It's just from a tape. And so it was completely surreal, and it was surreal from that moment until this moment here that I'm speaking to you. It's been completely surreal throughout the entire process.
What?
Well, you don't look...
Okay, I may be a grandfather, but that doesn't...
You're a grandfather.
I married young, the night before I shipped out for Korea.
You were in Korea?
Semper Fi, you little prick. Sergeant, U.S. Marine Corps.
No kidding. Yeah. Wow.
That's me with the cigar. The other one was the love of my life. Killed. Sniper. I went out on patrol, found the Chinese pissant who did it, and broke his neck with my own hands.
Jesus.
Actually, I made that last part up, but I would have if I'd gotten hold of the son of a bitch, and I'd do it today if I found him.
Big fan of your work, and I can honestly was thinking about this interview. I'm like, I've never really seen you play a character like Vilma. Can you talk about just being cast in the process of getting in with Ang Lee and saying, okay, you're going to play the tough guy, but it's going to be the tough woman?
I've always been excited. I'd always been a big fan of Ang's work, and I was really excited to work with him. I think that one of the things that sort of defines Ang as a director is a real attention to detail and research. So I sort of got into that with him in the spirit of that, and was kind of looking into the sexual revolution that was going on in gay culture and drag culture at the time, which turned out to be really interesting. That it was the beginning of a period of where gay men, in particular in drag culture, were incorporating their masculinity into their characters as well as their femininity. And there's a word that I can't say on television, gender bleeping. And that was really interesting to me, that you know, because prior to that, in the 50s, drag culture was pretty much men were either dressing like their mother or iconic movie stars. But now there was this new movement where men were incorporating their masculinity into their female characters. And I guess the idea behind that is that if someone like Vilma can be comfortable in her own skin, it should be a piece of cake for somebody like Elliot. And I think that was the thrust of the character as I understood it from Ang.
Ellie? Oh man, I remember this hill.
Remember, or like Vietnam flashback remember?
I remember, man. Homecoming. Senior year. We massacred Monticello. I got like 3 touchdown passes. Rum and Cokes. We pipped 3 of Yasgur's cows. Man, right there at the top of that hill.
This film is optimistic. It
Yeah.
shows a time when, even when the world was marred and shite with Vietnam and all this conflict, people got together, have a good time. How do you think this is relevant to today? Is it still relevant?
I mean, I think that this film is relevant because this film is about the power of good vibes, I think, almost more than anything. You know, how when people get together and they can be positive and they can be honest with each other and they can communicate, only good things come of that. And there's a healing power to that sense of community. That's what I felt, you know. My character Billy is a Vietnam veteran who feels very isolated and lonely, and through these people being positive and hanging out together, you know, that sense of community kind of brings him out of his shell and lets him discover the person that, you know, he used to be, that he kind of lost track of. I do think it's relevant to today, though, and I think that, I mean, we live in a time where, because of the mass media these days and the instantaneous communication, I feel like there's a more heightened sense of violence and sense of danger that young people have and that everybody has, just because you turn on the news and it's so violent, and, you know, there's just so much of that. It's part of the result of being more connected, is you're just more aware of the good stuff and the bad stuff, unfortunately, you know. Just as our interview right now, you know, can go on MovieWeb, we have good vibes in the interview, you know, good vibes, they could click on, you know, Google News and see some awful story just as fast. So this has to kind of balance, movies like this can help balance out the yin-yang of kind of our culture's kind of omnipotent awareness.
I'm a huge fan of Ang Lee. Been lucky to interview him over the years. I always ask actors, what do you think of him on set? Like, what was he like directing you personally?
On set, well, before we're in rehearsal, he gives you a binder of research. He speaks a lot. We have a very intense dialogue about what he wants from the character, all the stuff he wants you to look up, etc., etc. On set, he's incredibly soft-spoken and very, very gentle, and a lot like my character, actually, Michael, who is who sort of led Woodstock with this sort of sweetness and serenity. And Ang is the same way. And you just sort of say yes to Ang Lee because he's a master, and you just do whatever he tries to tell you to do because you just respect him so much. He's really a beautiful director to work with. I would kill to have it happen again.
Well, Ang's style is very meticulous and very thought out. I almost like can kind of compare him to like a fine like Chinese calligrapher who like is exact with his brushstroke. You know, that's kind of Ang. He does a tremendous amount of research about everything. You know, he talks. You know, me and him had hours and hours of conversations about who this character was, what was his past, why does he feel the way he does, how does he feel in this scene, you know, who is he emotionally at his core, what is he feeling, what is he thinking, what is he wearing. We had an hour conversation just about what kind of shoes I would wear. We had, you know, long conversations about dog tags, about what his last name should be. It was a big debate what his last name should be. This is the kind of awareness and attention to detail that makes someone like Ang Lee, and I just had a wonderful experience with him. I hope I get to work with him again.
What should I do? Rally your troops. Do I have troops? Got your mom, don't you? She's a battalion.
You need help?
What kind of help?
My God.
It's starting.
Go see this thing. See what the center of the universe looks like.
It's beautiful. It's fate. Right there at the top of that hill.
You gave them the brownies?